All right, guys. I apologize for the delay in starting this meeting. We are 10 minutes behind schedule, and I apologize for that. So, without wasting our time, I would like to welcome us all to this edition of the Knowledge Transfer Program. And today we are going to look at how we can use a MATLAB. It's going to be a practical session as instructed earlier. So, we're going to look at the fundamentals of MATLAB and how we can use MATLAB for regression and correlation analysis, which I think it's one of the important analyses that each one of us are been faced with one way or the other while doing our research, and probably in the future we'll still be faced with. And this is going to be the last session for this particular committee, for this administration, and we hope that the next administration will deem it fit to retain this innovation and also do better than we've done. So without further ado, I would like to thank Engineer Solomon Ajani for the invite. Despite that it came late, he still accepted the invite to take on the MATLAB session. We really appreciate the sacrifice and the volunteer for you to tutor us on one or two things or collaborate with us in terms of fundamentals of MATLAB. And with your permission, sir, I would like to tell you welcome, and you can start.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
All
A
right,
good
you're most
evening
welcome,
to
sir.
every one of us. And I would like to share my slide, though nothing serious, because we will try to do more of hands-on. So basically, this is not an attempt to teach MATLAB, essentially. It's an attempt to show us how we can use MATLAB directly into our research, because MATLAB is a very good tool for research, and you have a lot of engineers using MATLAB. And one of the advantage you have with MATLAB is that because a lot of people are using MATLAB, it is very, very easy for you to be able to use MATLAB to also do one or two things, because you will always find resources online. In fact, I can say essentially that most of the things that you might want to do with MATLAB, there is somebody somewhere who has done something of that nature with MATLAB. And MATLAB has a very large community to an extent, since there are a lot of engineers who are making use of MATLAB. So you will always find resources to help online. This is very, very important. And that's why as we begin to look at some of the things we'll begin to look at, you see that as much as possible, I will try to ensure that we do not go through the part of so much coding, because most times once there is a tool that requires so much of low-level implementation of coding and a lot of things, people always try to just avoid such tools. The same thing comes with something like LaTeX. Just a little bit of what looks like some coding makes a lot of people to try to avoid LaTeX. So as much as possible, we will not do so much of coding, because most of the things that we do with codes in MATLAB most times has a high-level implementation of those things, such that you could be able to still do these things without necessarily writing codes. So that's the approach we are going to take, and as much as possible, we'll provide one or two tips that we know can be of help to us. So as we have been told, if you have the MATLAB offline on your PC, it's fine. But if you don't, because MATLAB is very large, the last time I checked the size, it was running over 30 gig right now, except you do not want to install all the packages on it. So we can make use of the MATLAB version that is online, and just with your KNU email, once registered, you can log in and have access to the MATLAB that is online. Now, so the first thing I want us to talk about is code reuse. less coding, and less time. So let's be very, very sincere to ourselves. I do not essentially start a new project that requires programming or the use of MATLAB from scratch. Essentially, it is going to be a waste of time when, for example, you have some data and you want to sort them. It is going to be a waste of time for you to now sit down and begin to write from scratch how to sort this data. Meanwhile, there is always a function, there is already a function that is available in MATLAB that you can use, or there is somebody somewhere who is not working with the same kind of data you are working with, but the person has also been faced with the problem of sorting or a similar problem with yourself, and then the person has written some codes to perform that task. So you are doing research, and sometimes, in fact, some of the things you need to do with MATLAB and other things, they might not be the essential ingredients of your research. You just need this tool to use them to achieve one or two things along the line of research. So why waste your time trying to go about the low-level implementations, writing the codes from scratch? So what we do, basically, we call it code reuse. You pick a code from somewhere, you look at it, you know what the code is trying to do, you know what you are trying to do, and you simply adapt the code to do what you want to do. So most times for MATLAB, if you need some of these resources, if you just go online, MATLAB has a very large online community. You will always see that there is somebody. In fact, it might be the same way you are asking the question online that somebody has also asked online. So this is going to help us, and it is going to save us a lot of time. MATLAB also has file exchange, where people deliberately perform certain operations or they perform certain research using MATLAB, and they release their codes on MATLAB Exchange. So if you go online, you are going to find a code that is already available that you can adapt to do whatsoever it is that you want to do on MATLAB. Now, so two things. First, have in mind that it is possible to reuse other people's codes. And secondly, also have in mind that MATLAB is trying so much to hide the low-level implementation of a lot of things from people, such that even if you don't have a full knowledge of programming and other things, you can still be able to use MATLAB to do a lot of things that other people will have to rely on codes to do. So now the next thing I want to do is to just quickly show us the MATLAB interface and show us how we can just walk around it. And then I'm going to show us some of the documentation, which I feel like is one of the pride of MATLAB. MATLAB has a very, very concise documentation that can help you navigate around whatsoever it is you want to navigate around. Like I said, MATLAB is very large. I do not also know all the functions or everything that MATLAB can do, but because I understand that MATLAB has a documentation and I know how to use the documentations in MATLAB, then if I have a problem that has to do with something I have not done before, if it is something that is enabled in MATLAB, it is possible to do it because I can make use of these documentations. So I want to show us the interface so that we can begin to see. Okay, so I'm going to use the MATLAB online anyway so that we can see what is going on. Okay, so basically this is the interface of MATLAB, and okay, I need to close this guy. There are several ways with which you can view MATLAB. If you look at where my cursor is, the layout, you can see that you can use MATLAB in different kind of columns. Okay, this is on the MATLAB offline. This is the default way with which you are going to see MATLAB. This is the default. If you come to layout and you click on default, it is this 3-column layout of MATLAB that you are going to see. And what you have on the left here is the folder, the current directory where you are. The folder where you are, for example, you have a work on your desktop. You can use this place to navigate to your desktop so that you can have access to all the files in the folder. And what you have at the bottom here is the command line. So most times when you are running your codes, if there is error or certain results that you need to see, you are going to see them being displayed on the command line. Or there is something you quickly want to try, you are not sure if you want to add it to your code already, you can quickly run that on the command line. Now, then this is the environment where you rewrite your code. You can start a new script, a live script, or you can do whatsoever you want to do, just like the same way we have several other softwares. And what you have on this side is your workspace. All your variables that you are working with in MATLAB, you can see them here. You can see their size, the type or the data type which they are, and everything. You can see them there. You can see their names there. It's very important because it helps you to know the dimensions of your data set and what you are working with. So similar with every other softwares that we know, of course. Let me show us the offline version so that we can have a feel of what I'm talking about. A window. Okay, great. Okay, so similar with every other software that you have, if you come to you can save, you can open a file, you can add a new script, just like the same way you have on Windows or PowerPoint or any of those softwares. Now, if you want to run a code, peradventure you have written a code, you have to come to the editor. This is home, this is plot, this is apps, this is editor. You have to come to the editor, and from the editor, you can run your codes. Now, for example, you are writing a code and you are not so sure of what is going to happen with your code. There are different ways with which you can run your code in MATLAB. You can add a breaker such that while running your code is going to run from wheresoever you are running from, and is going to stop at the point of the breaker, and then you can continue to step it. It runs it lines by line. So you can know what line exactly you have problem, and then you can quickly address that. And as it is running line by line, you can see your workspace. Already you can begin to see that your variables are being created. If you just double click on the red sign, then your code does not run that way anymore. It runs everything from top to bottom. And then MATLAB also has apps. And this is one of the things that we are going to be making use of later when we come to some practical examples. Now, what this app does is that instead of you writing codes to do a lot of things in MATLAB have collected most of the codes that you need to do several things, and they have packaged them into apps. Now, as you can see, there are apps for different kind of things. If you are interested in machine learning and deep learning, there are different apps that you can use to train a regressor. You want to train a neural network, you want to do some classification. And most times we always either want to do a classification or a regression, most times when it comes to some of the fundamental application of machine learning and deep learning. Now, also, maths and statistics. Now, because we do research, we generate a lot of data. And of course, we could present our data quantitatively where we use some numbers. But you know that most times we are always looking for some qualitative ways by which we could present our data. So, for example, you have some data and you want to compare them. You want to know what is going on. You can use either fit them into a curve, you can do some distribution fitting and all the likes. Now, if you are in the class of control, you want to do control, MATLAB also have packaged a lot of controllers that people use. Most times you need a fuzzy logic controller, you need model predictive control, MPC, you need amphis, neurophysi, every of those things, you can do them without writing a single code, without writing a single code. Now, also for those in the automotive line or those in signal processing and communication, you want to process some signals, you want to do some image processing, some computer visions, and it does not leave out even people doing finance and maybe computational biology. You can use these apps to do a lot of things in MATLAB without even having any knowledge of coding, because what happens is that these apps, they give you access to every of the things that MATLAB provides without you writing a single code. Okay, so another thing we can do is you can have plots just like sometimes we do in Excel. Once you have your data already in the workspace, you can decide to generate any kind of plot in MATLAB without writing any code whatsoever. You can generate pie charts, histograms, whatsoever, scattered plots and graph plots, anything you want to do, as much as MATLAB is able to do it. They've been provided here, and then all you need to do is load your data, and then you can apply it. But you see, sometimes when you want to use some of these apps or some of these plots, it is very good for you to at least check some of the documentations of this app. Now, as you can see, just hovering around some of the icons, you can see that MATLAB is already trying to give you some informations about how to make use of this plots, how to go about your data preparation. We are going to see some examples how that there is a way. Once you load your data in, there are certain assumptions that MATLAB makes concerning your data. For example, if you are using maybe the regression app or the classification app, MATLAB totally assumes that the last column that you have is your test column. That is where your class or the target value you are trying to run a regression on, that is where it is. For the published sections, well, not it might not so much be applicable to us. For example, you've written some codes and you want to publish those codes, you can use the public section. And the view here is just to change your views around how you want to see MATLAB, how you can decide to split it such that you can have two scripts that can be displayed at the same time. You can do the top to bottom approach, and every of those things can be performed with the view. So basically, this is the workflow of MATLAB. And if you have your data set, maybe sometimes you have your data from Notepad, Excel, or CSV, whatsoever, without writing any code, you can still import those data. You can use the import data icon that you see here. I'm going to show us one example later, and your data can be loaded into the MATLAB workspace, and then you can do a lot of things that you want to do with MATLAB. So basically, I think that gives us an overview of how to navigate around MATLAB. Just like every other app, you don't need so much specialty on how to navigate. Now, the next thing I wanted us to look at is the documentation of MATLAB. Now, as you can still see, MATLAB has a very good documentation, and some of these documentations, in fact, you don't need to go online to have access to these documentations. You can search for them within MATLAB itself. This is one of the packages that MATLAB comes with. Now, if you look at the top right here, you can see it says search documentation. It's like a search bar. So let's assume, for example, you have some numbers you want to sort. For example, you have some numbers, some data, you've just loaded them in, and you want to have them sorted, but you do not even know what to do. You don't know how to go about it. You can take advantage of either going to search online, or you can use the MATLAB documentation. You can just type sort and enter. Now, can we still have my screen? Hello?
Yes, yes.
The one that is showing the results from the sort.
Not yet. No.
Oh, not yet. Okay, sorry. That means I need to represent that. Sorry. Okay, so after clicking on sort and clicking on enter from the previous slide that I showed to us, what you can see right now, we can see it right now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what you can see is you can see different things on sort being provided. Most times, just click on the first one. Then you begin to see MATLAB begins to tell you what to do. MATLAB shows you how to write that there is a function already in MATLAB that you can use to sort your numbers. And all you need to do is to give it an input. So most times, everything you have to do with MATLAB and any other programming language most times is that you have functions which have been made available onto you. But each of these functions, they have certain kind of inputs that they take. So you can see here, MATLAB gives you a description of everything that goes on here. So you can come here without any prior knowledge, and then you can understand what exactly is it that you need to do. Now, from the sort, it tells you that it sorts the element of A in ascending orders. If A is a vector, then it sorts the element, the vector element. If it's a matrix, it sorts everything according to each column, okay? And there is a way you can decide that you want to sort according to the rule. That is what you see here already. That is why if you want to sort according to the rule, you need another input. So you can come here, pass in your A and pass in the dimension. That is the along what axis you want it to sort. If you put 2, it's going to sort according to the rule. And so you can see that MATLAB has these documentations. It also provides you with examples. So this is just like you just declared a variable showing you some data that has been loaded into the MATLAB workspace, and you need to sort them. Okay, now if you read, it sorts it in an ascending order. All you need to do is sort and open your bracket and close it and let your A be inside, which is your input to that function, and then your numbers are going to be sorted. Now, there are times when you do not just need the sorted numbers alone. You want to know the location of each number as they come, because you might need them to perform other calculations. You can see that MATLAB also gives that to you. It gives you the exact location, the index. For example, if you do it accordingly, you can see that 9 is currently the highest number, but in the variable A, 9 is in the first index. So you can return both the index of your each of the values or each of the numbers in your variable. You can return that also if you need them for any other thing. And so you can see that even if you don't have a prior knowledge of how to use this function before, by virtue of the documentation that you have available in MATLAB, it is possible for you to be able to at least make an attempt to use it, because you are going to see examples, and every of the examples have been clearly explained such that you know what you need to pass as an input, and you know what your expected output is going to be. Okay, so I want to go back to the page. Okay, so now another way to have access to that same order of documentations, for example, you don't want to go to another page, you can just come to your command line and type L. You need L for what? For sort, and press enter. MATLAB is going to give you that same documentation that I just showed us now. MATLAB is going to expose it to you on the command line, the command window, so you can see everything here, and you can just follow it so that you can be able to write your code. So this is one of the advantage of MATLAB. You have a documentation for virtually everything that is in MATLAB. So if you come and peradventure you have a problem, you don't know what to do, it is either you take advantage of the documentation of MATLAB itself, or you can just go online and just like with Google search. Okay, most times if you want to Google search, because there are a lot of programming languages, and whatsoever it is that you want to do, there is most especially that somebody is also looking for how to do that with another programming language. A very good way with which you could search, for example, you wanted to search salt, you can just type salt and put a plus and write MATLAB. Enter this on your Google, it is going to bring to you informations that are related to the sort function in MATLAB. And in fact, every of the documentations that you have offline here is also made available online. So most times when you begin to do a work, you run into a lot of trouble. But there is an online community that can come to your aid. And at the same time, there is a documentation that has been carefully prepared by MATLAB to help us to navigate around a lot of things. Now, I want us to begin to at least do one or two examples on some of the things we have been discussing, because every of the discussion we are making might not be so useful to us until we begin to see some of them in application. So, for example, I told us that it is possible for you to have some data and you want to show some, you want to compare your results, you want to show some qualitative analysis for your results, you want to show some graphs, and which is one of the things that most of us do in research. You have some data you get either from your machine or from certain simulations, and you want to present this data. So the first thing I want us to look at is how you can just navigate around the plotting function itself. And like I said, I do not want us to get into the low-level implementation of all these things. So I will not be so much interested in writing so much codes. What I want us to do is take advantage of some of the graphic tools that we have in MATLAB, and then you can get done with whatsoever it is that you want to do. Okay, so this is my MATLAB online. So for example, now, what I've just done here is to just generate some synthetic data. I just generated numbers between 0 and pi times 10, and I gave them an interval of pi over 10 for each of the interval. And if you allow me, let me clear my workspace and okay, so if we run this, I'm going to show us what is inside. Sorry. So what you can see is I've just generated a very large amount of number from this line of code that I've written. This is just a synthetic data. I just want to use it to illustrate to us the plotting. So forget about the data. I'm still going to show us how to load in data either from Excel or whatsoever it is we have, and we can do whatsoever it is that we want to do. And I've also decided to compute sine x. You need to compute the sine of each of those numbers. So this is going to do it, and is going to store it in the variable y1. And I've also computed cos x, but this time I'm multiplying each of the numbers in x by 2.4. This is just to make it a little bit different, because you know the cos and the sine, they look complementary. One is just lagging behind the other. So now we want to plot those values. We just want to see what is going on. Now, it is very possible for me to write this code. What I've just done here is I've just plot x against y1, and because I want to plot it on the same figure, I have said hold on. Once you hold on, then every of the things you plot subsequently, they are going to be plotted or appended on the same figure. And I have also plotted. But peradventure, somebody is not so happy that I have written this line of code to plot this thing because the person is not interested with coding. So you can come to the plot that you have here and you can begin to make use of some of these plots. This is a line plot. Wow, why is this disabled here? My God. Okay, let me go offline. Just give me a minute. Okay, anyway, let me show us what I essentially want to show us here first. So I'm still going to plot from here and show us what I intended. So now, so this is the figure that we have already from that just few line of codes. So now, you cannot necessarily present your figure like this. Everything is just looking like a very skeletal thing. You want to make it look a little bit good. You want to make it look illustrative. Now, every of those things that you want to do to this figure so that it can look the way you want, they can be done with codes. But like I said, I do not want us to really write codes. So what do we do? All you need to do is, as you can see, this is not the exact way that the plotting is on the offline MATLAB, but I will try to also show us the offline version so that we can go on. Now, so if there's anybody following me online, the person can also try to implement what I'm doing here. Just write this chunk of code in the script session and try to run it. It is going to give you exactly the same thing that I have here. So we have time. You can just look at it one by one, or you can decide that your X is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whatsoever it is you want to do, you can use it. This is just a data to show us how we can modify any figure that we have in MATLAB to look exactly the way we want it to look. So now we come to this figure, you click on edit. Now you can click on each of the lines or each of the data that have been plotted on the curve, and then you can modify them to look exactly the way you want them to look. For example, you can change the line style. You can change the style of the line to look in a way you can change also the weight so that it can be more thicker, so that it can be more clearer to see. You can also change the color. This is the edge color. You can change the color to whatsoever color you want, and you can also make it a little bit thicker. And when you double click, you have access to a lot of things. You want to add some markers, you can add some markers, you can see from here. On the blue one, you can also add some markers, and you can also choose the size of the marker. For example, as we can see, this marker looks very big. We can reduce it back to 3. And this also, we can reduce the marker size back to 3. Well, the figure is looking like something better now to an extent, not totally. But there are still a lot of things you can do. Most times you want to have a legend, you want to add a legend, you can bring in a legend, you can just double click and name your legend. You don't really have to write any code. Although every of the things that I'm doing here, you can do them by code. Of course, you want to write the labels, most likely. Okay, so we can just say some length. You want to put the y-axis. You can just say some values. And peradventure, you want to write some title, you want to add some grid line. You do not necessarily have to write any code. Now, so this gives you access to modify everything you want to modify the way you want to modify them. And even when you are done, you can export your figure as either PNG or as PDF, as you can see here. Now, most times for those who maybe peradventure you use latex or other things, a very good way to extract your figures might be PDF. You can just add those PDFs directly to your latex or overlay file, and they are of very, very high quality. Now, as you can see, we are manipulating everything on the figure. There are still a lot that you can manipulate, as you can see from the property editor. Now, give me a minute. I want to quickly show us how this thing is going to look exactly if you are not on the online version of MATLAB. Okay, good. So this is the offline. I have some junk stuff already I did. And okay, now if you look at this from here to here, what I'm doing is that I am plotting a figure, and after plotting the figure, I want to set every of the thing I just did on MATLAB online now, but I am not interested to use maybe the apps or the visual way. I want to write them as codes, because I want it such that when I run this code tomorrow, I have every of those effects there. So I'm going to try to run this. Now, as you can see, every of the things that you see here, I scripted them together as codes. But peradventure, you did not want to do that. All you did was plot your figure, and it was looking so bare and empty. Then you can come to View, and click on Property Editor. Now, your figure is going to be looking like this, and every of the same thing that I just did from the MATLAB online, you can do here. You can write your x-axis label. Let's call it some values. Y-axis, you can give it some stuffs. You can insert your legend. As you can see, I just removed it and I can add it back. You can add your grid, maybe horizontal grid alone or everything. You can change, if you don't want a box around it, you can remove it. You can change the color of the background from whatever you want to change it from. You want it to be in another color, you can do that. Every of the things you want to do. And you can also change your axis. For example, you don't want the limit to start from somewhere to somewhere, or you don't want it to stop at 9. You can also add some value to it, so it stops at 10. So you can see.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we can't see what you are doing currently.
My God, that's oh, I'm sorry. I understand. I'm sorry. I needed to. Okay, so now after I ran that script that I showed us from MATLAB, it gave me this figure. So and from this figure, the figure is going to be looking this way at first. It's going to be looking this way without any addition to it. It's going to just be looking like this. But don't forget, I told us I'd already written codes to modify every of the lines and to show the legend and every other thing. But if you don't want to write the codes, you can just come to View here and click on the Property Editor. Then you have access to everything that is on this plot. You can change anything whatsoever. This is the x-axis. You can write the name. The y-axis, you want to change the font, the kind of font. You want to change the size of the font. Anything you want to do, you can do it from here relative to making your figure look the way you want it to look. If you come here, you can either insert a legend. You want a color bar, which of course is just like a way of comparison also. Most times you see some of these figures and people use them to compare. You can just come and insert them from here. So every of the things that you want to do with your figures, once you have them plotted, you can do them from the property editor. You don't necessarily have to write any code. And once you are done, you can save your figure or export it in either PNG, JPEG, or whatsoever format you want to export it. So that helps us around the MATLAB figure and every other thing. Now, I have not explained everything that has to do with the MATLAB figure, but this is just to illustrate to us that it is possible for you to do every of these things without writing any line of code. Now, I want to quickly go to some more examples that are related to the exact things that we want to look at. No, I need to go to MATLAB online. Okay, good. Okay, so that's that about that. Okay, so let me quickly show us. You have a data which is maybe CSV or in Excel, and you need to do some analysis on those data. Now, I have initially uploaded this data to my folder on the MATLAB online. It's not any serious data. It's a data I picked up from UCI, which is a repository for different kind of machine learning data sets. And this data is just a data that tries to predict if somebody has cancer from just some vital signs and other things that doctors can just check at any point in time. So we want to see if from this data, you can decide if somebody has cancer or not. That's what the data is meant for, but I'm just going to be using it for illustration. The same way I'm going to be importing this data is the same way it can be imported on the MATLAB offline. Once you come to the directory where your data is, just double click on the data. Once you double click on the data, MATLAB opens another window that shows you everything in the data. As you can see, the age, the BMI, the glucose level, the insulin level, down to the MPC1 value, which of course I don't know what it is. And finally, you have the class. One represents that the person has cancer, and two represents that the person does not have cancer. Okay, so now your data was in CSV. You've double clicked on it, and MATLAB has shown you this import page that shows you your data. And now all you need to do is you can just select on this mark, this green mark, and MATLAB is going to import. Sorry, let me clear my workspace so we can see it well. Once you click on import, MATLAB imports your data to the workspace, and that's what you can see here. This is data R2, your CSV. But notice something, that the type of your data that has just been loaded in MATLAB is table, is a table. Your data is a table, and most times if you want to do a lot of things in MATLAB, it is not very advisable for you to use your data as a table. It is better for you to use your data as an array most times, or a matrix. It gives you the flexibility to be able to do a lot of things within the MATLAB workspace. What is going on? I think the network is okay. Great. Okay, so your data is here already. Like I told us, it's a table, and you simply want to convert your data from a table back to an array. You can do that simply on your command prompt. Let's just say that our data is going to be equal to table. If you tap on your, as you can see, MATLAB is already giving me a suggestion, table to array. That is what you want to do. Once you click on it, you just pass in your data. That's all. Now, so you have your data now as an array. an array that is in double. So you have your data. So every other thing that you want to do, you can begin to do now with that data. And you can see the size. The data has 10 columns and it has 116, 116 rows. Now, let's assume that the data you just brought in, like I told us, is supposed to be a data for some kind of classification problem. Now you want to do classification. You want to do some machine learning, but you don't want to write any code. Now, just come to the app, like I mentioned earlier. Just scroll down to, you see the classification learner here. Just double click on it. Now, notice when I showed us the data, I told us that the data, the last column is what contains the class or the target. This is what MATLAB assumes every time you load in a data, especially if you want to use maybe the machine learning apps that are on MATLAB. Now, after clicking on the classification learner, another dialog box has been opened, so I need to go back there. Okay, sorry, another tab. Wow. This is serious. I'm not sure we are going to be able to see that. Okay. Is anybody having another tab showing up already? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, so do we have
Yes, we can hear
another
you.
tab showing already?
We don't have the data, so
No. I'm not necessarily asking if, like, can you see what the same screen as I'm seeing? I have a screen that is just showing some gray background right now.
yes, we
You
can
can
see
see
it.
that.
Okay, good. If you have this, all you need to do is start a new section. And what it's asking you is, where do you want to pick your data from? You want to pick your data from a file, or you want to pick your data from the workspace. We already loaded a data into the workspace, so you can double click on workspace. And then all you need to do is select the data set variable, which is data, which we just created. And as you can see, immediately the data is loaded in, and you can see it is not highlighting the last column because the app already assumes that the last column is going to be the target column. And well, I don't want to go into the details of machine learning, but there is what we call cross-validation, holdout, and all the likes. These are things you can check out, and MATLAB is already giving you a description. If you have a very large amount of data, or you don't have a very large amount of data, MATLAB is giving you an advice of which of these to check. I'm just going to check the cross-validation, and I'm going to start the session. Okay, now.
Mr. Instructor.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, please. Is there a way we can send the data so that for those before we start
If
proper?
anybody is following and needs the data, I'm going to send it now.
Yeah, so that we could maybe some people might be interested in practicing as you explain or something too.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm sending the data right now.
Okay. I think you can drop it on the WhatsApp platform where everybody can easily access.
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to go over that area again if anybody needs that, so that we can quickly go on. Okay. Okay, so the CSV is now on the page, actually. So can anybody confirm that they have the data on the WhatsApp group now?
It's on the WhatsApp group now.
Yes. So let me try to go over that aspect again. Peradventure, there is somebody that wants to also follow suit to understand the process. Close this app, for God's sake. This is the problem of working online. Okay, anyway, I will go on, but I will go ahead and show it on the offline version, and every step is going to be the same, exactly the same as it is going to be if you are on the offline version. Sorry, if you are on the online version. Okay, so I need to quickly move back to that directory on my desktop. Okay, so this is the data, as we can see. Oh, but this I have to be going from one. Okay, so this is the data, as we can see. You can just double click, just like I showed us the other time, and you click on import selection. Once you import, it is advisable for you to convert your data back to an array. That is done, and then you can come to the app and select your classification learner. So once again, I need to stop sharing and share that window again. Good. Okay, so in the classification learner, the same process I'm going through is the same process as the online version. You can click on add a new section. From workspace, you can select the new data that we just loaded in, and you can start a session. Now, once you start this session, what you are seeing is that if you look at the top tab that you have here, and you click on this drop down as I'm showing, you have several machine learning algorithms that have been made available onto you. You want to train a decision tree, you want to do discriminant analysis, you want to do logistic regression classifier, naive Bayes, support vector machine, nearest neighbor, and ensembles. You want to do any one, you can just select them. Now, depending on your data, there are certain machine learning algorithms that could be better for you to use. For example, let me use the quadratic support vector machine. You just click on it, and once you click on it, you click on train. Now it trains sorry, it's still trying to open my parallel pool because there's a GPU on my computer, so it is attempting to use the GPU. If not, it should be faster than this. It's going to take some time to open the parallel pool on the computer.
Inspector, sir.
Yes.
While we are waiting for this thing to work, please.
Okay.
I went to the toilet, so I couldn't get how you load the
data, right?
Yeah, sorry. So while we are waiting for this, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. I'm going to pretty much come back to that now. You have the online version, right?
I'm using the offline.
Offline. Okay, great. So if it's the offline, let me also try to ensure that I'm using the offline. So I will have to stop sharing so that I can go back to that page. Okay, so this is MATLAB, and
You are
you
not
have
sharing
your
your.
data. You have your data in the directory, which is this data R2CV.
No, I've not been able to bring the data to this directory.
Okay, to this directory,
Yes.
anywhere you have this data on your laptop, even if it's on your desktop, just click on this cursor, browse folder.
Okay.
Once you click on it, you have access to your desktop. Then just say select folder, drop the data on your desktop, click on the icon I just clicked on now,
Okay.
and
We are
click on
okay.
desktop, select folder. Then you are going to be able to see everything on your desktop.
Okay.
Once you have access to everything on your desktop, just double click on that CSV file. Then you can select import selection. Once you do that, you see that it imports it directly to your
So please, where is import selection?
Here. Let me go back one step. Double click on your CSV file from inside the MATLAB environment. It is going to bring up this dialog box.
Dialogues box.
This new window is going to bring up this new window.
He's not seeing the new window.
Okay, I see. Oh, sorry. I'm going to go back again, because it's always showing everything in a separate window.
Oh.
This window, do you have this window?
Yes.
Good. So if you have this window, just click on import selection.
Okay.
Now, once you click on import selection, come back to your data. You are going to see it already in this place, which is the workspace. You see that the data has already been loaded.
Yes, in data.
Now, once that data is loaded, because like I said, it is better for you to work with array, not tables. But the data which you have just loaded, you will see that it is a table. It is showing you 116 by 10, then table. So just create a new variable called data. Just like I'm doing, data equal to table to array. And then the name of the data that you just loaded in, which is data R2. Are we on the same page now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you do that, click on enter. Once you click on enter, you see that another variable has been created, which is data, and it is 116 by 10. Then in front of it, you see double.
Yes.
Good. Once that is done, just like I'm doing, click on the apps.
Okay.
And then click on the drop down. You see the machine learning and deep learning section.
Yes.
Click on the classification learner. Okay, so I need to go back to that page once again. So we are on the same page now, right?
Unfortunately, I have deep network design, deep network network quantizer.
But you did not see the classification learner.
I saw the classification learner. Under the classification learner, we have just deep network, like the particular one you picked.
Which is the classification learner. Just I double clicked on classification learner. If you click on the apps and you come down, there is like a subsection that is titled machine learning and deep learning.
Yes, under that machine learning and deep learning.
Yes, you will see classification learner. Double click on that classification learner.
Unfortunately, I don't have classification learner. I have deep network designer, deep network quantizer, experiment
I
manager.
think it's because the version of MATLAB you are using is a old MATLAB, most probably.
Okay, just continue with the section, please.
Okay. So if you are on the same page that I am now, which shows the classification learner, now we have loaded our data in already, and I showed us from workspace, you can select, let me start the session all over again. From workspace, you can select the data which you want to use and click on start session. Once you do that, from the drop down that you can see here, you have different classification learners. You have different machine learning algorithms already packaged for you, and you can select any one that you want. So like I said, I'm going to try to select quadratic support vector machine. And after that, you will see that what you see here is the classification learner that you have just selected. All you need to do is select train. Now, it trains a support vector machine, a quadratic support vector machine on that data. And immediately it shows you your results. As you can see here, I have just 69.8% accuracy. Now, most times you want to show your results, okay? And one of the ways we show the result of classification learning, not just the accuracy, is the confusion matrix. So you want to show the confusion matrix. So you can just, oh, it's showing on another. Okay, so you can see that you already have your confusion matrix here, which shows you that out of all the data that you have, the classifier was able to classify just 32 of them correctly as 1. And then it classified 20 wrongly as 2. And then it classified 15 wrongly as 1. And it was able to classify accurately 49 as 2. So most times, this is what we use most times to show the result of classification learner. You can show a scattered plot also, but it's very hard for you to give meaning to what is going on here. So, and you can also show your ROC curve, but most times the confusion learner. So you can use any of these machine learning algorithms that are available already, just directly. As you can see, we've not written any code, but we have just applied machine learning on a data set. You can also come and decide that, okay, I don't like the result of this quadratic support vector machine. Let me try the find nearest neighborhood. You can click on it. Once you click on it, you click on train. It is going to train again that algorithm. In fact, this is giving you not a very good result, 64.7%, as you can see. And you have the confusion matrix already and every of the things that you need. Your results, you can always export them. As you can see here, export plots to figure, and it can be generated to figure. Now, let's assume that you, in fact, want to generate some code of everything that you have done now. You can click on generate function, and it's going to generate the code that did everything that you just did now for you. But most times you don't always need that. What you need is your result, because if you are doing research, sometimes you just need some of these results to go online, except if you are doing a practical implementation of what you are doing, then you might need to generate the code from here so that you can deploy it on your hardware or whatsoever product that you are making available. Now, so in the last few minutes, what we just did was loading our data and train a machine learning algorithm to be able to classify the data that we have if the person had cancer or not. And we did not write any code. Now, this is very possible, as you can see that this is not the only app that is available. I've shown us you have several apps that are made available. I want to go back to the app window again. Now, as you can see from the app window, depending on your field, there is always an app that is made available that people are using to do a lot of things. Now, I want to show maybe one more with the regression. Okay, so basically what regression does is, instead of predicting a class, what you want to predict is most likely you want to predict a certain value. I'm just going to be using the same random data that we have, not necessarily something serious, because we are just trying to illustrate to us. Now, as you can see, this data is showing us already all the classes or the target value that we want. Now, don't forget I told us that the last column always represents the target, 1 or 2. Now, you can also come here and train any kind of regressor. There are different regressors, as you can see. You have the linear regression models, regression tree, support vector machine, Gaussian progress regression model. Once you click on any one, the same way, just click on train. And it trains the regressor to be able to estimate the value. Now, as you can see, the data that I used actually is a data that is meant for classification. So I do not expect that the results are going to be accurate. I'm just showing us so that we can see how every of these things go on. How that you can train a regressor, you have some data and you want to, for example, I know that people in School of Agric who work with greenhouse, you want to most likely be able to predict the temperature or the humidity within the greenhouse based on some data that you are able to collect. You can train a regressor without writing any line of code. Just collect your data and then come to MATLAB, make advantage of the MATLAB apps, and then you are able to train a regressor, and you are going to have some results which you will be able to, of course, show that what you are doing is valid. Okay, so now the last thing I want to show relative to the MATLAB app is the distribution filter. Okay, let's stop this again. For example, you have some data and you want to do some comparison of your data. You want to show some qualitative analysis of the data. Now, so all I did to get to this window that we have here is I went to the app, and just like we have all the apps listed, I clicked on the distribution filter. Now, on the distribution filter, it follows almost the same process. All you need to do is load your data. Okay, once you load your data, by clicking on this data, it goes to your directory or your workspace, and you can select data. Now, notice that my data that I have in that variable has several columns. Okay, so let's assume that I performed an experiment using one technique. I have some values. I performed another experiment using another technique. I have some values. Now I can load in those values. What I've just done here is I've selected the first column of the data that I loaded in, and I'm going to click on. Can we see the screen? Oh, this guy is always generating new windows. Okay, let me try to. Okay, so you have the data loaded in, and you can create your data set. You can load as many of the instances of the data sets that you have, and it's going to create different instances of those data sets. I've just selected the second column of the data set now, and now every of the things I'm doing, you can do with any data set that you have available with you. All the data set I'm using, they are just, some of them are synthetic data set that I created or I just picked up from anywhere online just to show us what can be done with MATLAB. So if you have loaded in these two data sets, you can just click on close, and then it will go back to the previous window from which I was coming. MATLAB is really something else with these windows. Okay, so this is what you have. Now, as you can see, it has just displayed the two data that I loaded in as a form of a bar chart, but that is not what we are looking at. What we want to see is, especially if you are comparing results from one technique to another, one of the things we want to see is, are the results really distant from each other? And that's when we begin to calculate p-value, we do Wilcoxon test and all those things. But sometimes those are just quantitative, they are numbers. You want to show some qualitative values, and the way you can do that is to fit some distribution to your data. So you click on new fit. Once you click on new fit, oh, MATLAB is going to generate another new window. Okay, I have to stop it again. Now, on the new fit, all you need to do is select the data which you have already loaded and you have named while you were loading the data. What kind of distribution do you want to fit? You can fit a normal distribution, you can fit a binomial distribution, logic, log normal, Nakagami, any kind of distribution you want to fit, you can fit. But most times, I advise that you fit a normal distribution. Once you do that, you click on apply. Now it's taking time because MATLAB is trying to fit that data onto a distribution. It's trying to fit it onto a distribution. So it takes some time to do that. And okay, now it's done. And I have to close that and start another session so that I could fit another distribution again. Okay, so I'll select the second data now. I only want to hope that it is the same window that we are. I'm just applying a distribution. It's taking some time to fit. Wow, I see that some persons are not finding the okay, just a minute. I can see that some persons did not really find the classification learner that I showed the other time. Okay, so right now you can see the two data that we have here. MATLAB has already fitted them into a distribution, and you can see clearly that this data, they are very, very distinct from each other. Now, if you are really using real data from an experiment, the tendency is that those data most times, they look almost the same because maybe you are performing the same experiment, but you are using a different technique. The results are going to look the same. So it is very difficult for you to be able to differentiate between the two of them just from the numbers or from just some simple statistical tests. So what do? You feed some distribution, and of course you can always remove this bar chart if you don't want them to be there. Just come to data and uncheck the data so that the data will no longer be showing, and all you can have is just the distribution that has been fitted already. MATLAB is always generating a different. Just uncheck the once I clicked on the data, it brought another window. Just uncheck. You are going to see check on the two data sets that we are using now. Just uncheck them, and then the bar chart that you have alongside the graph is going to go if you don't want it. Because some of these apps, they take a lot of time to run. This is why. This is why sometimes people prefer to write the code. Okay, so this is what we have. And the same process which we used with the figures and everything you can do, because you can just come here and print the figure or export it as a MATLAB figure, and you can go all over and do every of the editing that you want to do to every of the figure. And then you have this which you can use as qualitative result for your data that you have. And as we have seen from the apps, you can do a lot of things with the apps in MATLAB without writing a single line of code. Without writing a single line of code, you can do a lot of things. You can train your classifier. You can do a lot of things. These are just what I'm showing us just to illustrate that you can do every of these things. Because if you check the app, you have a lot of several other things that could be done. For those in biology, you have Sim Biology, Model Builder. For electrical people, you have, in fact, you have Simulink, which I'm not sure we'll be able to touch at all, which you can use to design electric circuits to any length and simulate them and see if you have any error whatsoever. You want to build a controller, you want to do some signal processing and all those. You have just gone to the farm, collected some data, you want to do some analysis. It is very possible you can do them without writing a single line of code in MATLAB, because MATLAB is trying so much to ensure that they attract a very large community of people, not just people who can necessarily write the codes. Now, with the examples that we have seen, as I plan to round up because we are almost running out of time. Okay, because we are almost running out of time, these are tips. How do we go on from here? What can we do? Now, the first thing I want us to remember is that before I started showing us any example, I told us about MATLAB documentation. MATLAB has a very good documentation that can get you started just with your data and with your computer being able to access either MATLAB or being able to access Google. You can always see someone who has done exactly what you want to do, so you can reuse their code. If not, you can always use the documentation that MATLAB has made available. Many of the things that you will want to do in MATLAB is already packaged into a function. All you need to know is what are the inputs that the function expects me to give to it, and what are the outputs that the function expects me to do to it, to give to it. Just a few weeks ago, we had to solve some ordinary differential equations. We just had to use just one MATLAB, just one line. There is a function already that helps you to solve differential equations in MATLAB. All you need to do is check MATLAB documentation. What inputs do I need to give to MATLAB, and what output should I be expecting from MATLAB? If you do everything that way, you are going to get the results that you want. Now, MATLAB apps. MATLAB apps gives you access to a lot of functions and capabilities of MATLAB without you writing a single line of code. All you need to do is use your mouse, do some picking, some selecting here and there, and you are doing exactly the same thing as the person that is writing the codes. And we have illustrated a few of these using examples. Now, I know that this is not something that is so sufficient to get someone to begin. But I can say to us essentially that even up till now, some of us who claim that we use MATLAB, we still apply every of the principles that I just taught now, because there are certain things I want to do with MATLAB that I have never done before. So I have to go and search. How is this done? Is there a MATLAB function that can do it? If there is a MATLAB function that can do it, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? And then from there, I can begin to go on. I'm still having trouble. I go to File Exchange, or I go to Google. I type in, this is what I want to do with MATLAB. You will always find somebody who has at one time or the other wanted to do exactly the same thing that you wanted to do with MATLAB, and you will be able to get that help from the person. And also, as much as possible, thank God, I think Engineer Obashekore is also online. Even up till now, sometimes we are doing certain things. You will have to call someone and say, can MATLAB do this thing? Is there a function that can do this in MATLAB? So you can also make use of persons who have been using MATLAB prior to these times to be able to get what you need to do to be able to get them done. So on this note, I'm going to round up with the session. Thank you very much for following. I know that the session was not so much easy to follow, because once I click on something, MATLAB generates another window, and then we have to switch and switch and switch. But if you have followed the things that I have said, just with the MATLAB apps and the documentation, you can begin to play with certain things on MATLAB. Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, back to you.
Wow. This is really impressive. Thank you very much, Engineer Solomon. So at this junction, for some of us are obsessed with visualization of data. Now we are confused. Engineer Oba came, burst our bubbles with Python, data visualization with Python, seaborn, riverborn, lakeborn. Now you here with MATLAB, and everything seems like I'll use MATLAB. When he did Python, I was like, I'll use Python. So it's actually good that we have different approaches, and then we have different tools that our instructors have taught us. So that means if we have something to visualize or analyze in Python, we can jump into MATLAB, and subsequently we hope to invite someone to teach us R2. So we'll have a hold of all of this, and then we could pick which is more important. So that being said, I don't know if you have any questions or probably addendum to the.
I have a question, yes.
All right, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, Engineer Dr. Solomon. Thank you very much. Now, my question is, number one, I've always been in MATLAB and Simulink. Like most times when you hear anybody mentioning MATLAB, most times you have this Simulink of it in. So that's my first question. Like,
okay.
So what does Then my second question is, I observed that while we are trying to create on the workspace in MATLAB, we have new scripts and new live scripts.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the new live script is creating a .mls extension. I don't know, like while the ordinary script like is not having any .mls extension. I don't know, maybe you understand that part.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the second question. Then
Okay.
the last question is the simple way you first generated your data, at least
Yes.
even though we don't understand coding, but at least we were able to follow y1, y2, plot, hold on this. But the
Yeah.
first part, which is very, very important, is that x, which is x is equal to 0 column, pi over 10 column, then 10 times pi column, like column, like I understand the last part of the semicolon, like you don't
Okay.
want it to display,
Okay.
but that is
Okay.
also that's that first line. Just explain. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay. No problem. Great. So, do we have any other question, or I can just go over this one?
No,
You can go
I
I
have a
think
ahead.
you can
question.
go over this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Then
Great.
after
Great.
this,
Great.
we'll go
Great.
for the next question.
Great. 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 Okay. So, the first question that has to do with the new script and every of those. So, the new scripts, what happens is that if you are writing, if you start using the new script and you are writing your code, like what I'm using now, I'm just using the new script. The new script is going to give you your code as an M file, okay? And the new live script is going to give you your code as a MLX file. Now, the difference is not so much. The difference is that if you are running your code on the live script, your results, they are going to be showing just beside, for example, let me try to show us something. For example, if I say x equal to 5 and I decide to run it, your figures, now you can see that already this column, this is divided into two columns. You can see one column here and another column here.
Yes.
Now, the second column that you are seeing here that has just been created is going to be displaying all your figures. Everything is going to be live. You don't have to go to another window per se.
Okay.
But in the new script, the normal script, if you plot a figure, that figure is going to be shown in the new window. But if you use the new live script, it's going to be like live. Every of your results that you are showing is going to be showing on a live script also. So you are not going to be having anything to do with most likely maybe another window most of the time. So it is live. It's just a visual interaction so that you can be seeing everything you are doing at the same time. There is no difference whatsoever with it. It is .mlx. The MLX helps you to be able to see everything you are doing on this other column of the file. So that's that. Now, Simulink. Now, as you can see already, you are seeing Simulink here. That's where my cursor is. Simulink,
Okay.
like I said, you know, one of the things that MATLAB tries to do is that MATLAB is trying to attract different kind of people, those who understand coding and those who don't understand coding. And I want to be sincere with us. There are certain things that I cannot also do in MATLAB. Most times I have to run to Simulink. What happens in Simulink is that instead of you writing code, for example, you want to pass some variable into some functions and other things, you just draw the same way you used to have like a flow chart or a block diagram. That is how you will draw the flow of everything that you want to do in Simulink. And that's all. You will run it, and it's going to run and simulate everything as though you are writing a code. Now, the reason why I don't want to open Simulink is that I want to believe that this Simulink sometimes is even heavier than MATLAB itself to a very large extent, because it runs MATLAB underground. Okay, it runs MATLAB underground. So Simulink sometimes is very, very heavy, but you can do a lot of things with Simulink. Like people in mechanical engineering, you want to do some visual things, you want to design controllers, you want to design some things for aerospace, you are an electrical engineer, you want to do vision, dynamics, state flow, scene-scape, every of those things. It is going to be visual. That's what Simulink does. But right now, I am serious. Okay, let me try to just open one Simulink file so that we can see. Though Simulink takes some time to load, but I will try to show us something on Simulink now so we can see it. Okay, so I already opened Simulink and I have to go back to the page of Simulink. Okay, so this is Simulink, and this is one of the work I did in Simulink. Now, what I'm doing here is that I am building a controller for a robot. But as you can see, you might not necessarily see anything that has to do with any code, but everything I did here can be done with a code. So what you do in Simulink is you just join everything together. Like, for example, this PDS is an input. It is some kind of values. It is coming. You want that value. There is a function that needs that value. For example, this function needs to take that value. You just draw it and connect it to this box.
Okay.
So every box in Simulink has an input and an output, just like every function in MATLAB has an input and an output. So instead of you writing those input and output by yourself, you can just come here and you can arrange everything like a Simulink block, and then you'll be able to do what you want to do. Anyway, if anybody is interested in Simulink, I think that's a different ball game entirely, because Simulink is like another different aspect of MATLAB. Now, let's go quickly to the question of what I wrote in the first place to generate a synthetic data, right? That's the last question, if I am right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm back to the MATLAB. Oh, sorry, I didn't come to MATLAB online. I went somewhere else. Okay, so this is MATLAB online, and what I'm doing here, this X, is that I want to generate numbers between 0 and, okay, so I will try to write it now in a more way. Let's say A equal to 0 to, let me say I want to generate number from 0 to 10, okay? If I do it this way and I click enter, you can see it has generated for me values from 0 to 10. But let's assume that I do not want them to be in a step of 1. I want them to be in a step of 0.1. Okay, so you can see it has generated values from 0 to 10, but in the interval of 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. So that's what I did here. Nothing much. I only generated data from 0 to 10 times pi. Pi is 3 points, whatsoever it is. 3.1416. Okay. But I also want to generate it on the interval of pi divided by 10. So that is what I've done. And if you look at the value of X, you will see that it is from 0 down to pi times 10, because I added pi times 10, which is going to be 31.415. And you will see that it is following an incremental value of 0.3142. So that's what I did there, actually. Okay, sir.
Okay.
All right. Any question, please? Thank you for that input, sir. Any further question? Okay, I have one. So though
Okay.
it may not be related to MATLAB or anything, but I want to ask
Sorry.
a question. When we see some publications and they have some kind of graphical abstract or something,
Okay. Okay.
I don't know whether you or any of our scholars have an idea of how like how do they do kind of, you see kind of like a workflow of the research, summarizing the entire research in an image looking so complicated and beautiful. I don't know, is it MATLAB too, or coding involved, or is just a normal PowerPoint or Illustrator?
Okay. So most of those graphical abstracts, of course, everybody have different tools with which they do whatever it is they want to do. For example, I've written a graphical abstract before. I only used PowerPoint to create it, but there are some dedicated infographic softwares. In fact, there are infographic softwares that are online, like online versions that people use to create some of these graphical abstract. But the truth is that every of those graphical abstract comes with a level of ingenuity on the side of whosoever wants to design them. You can see a graphical abstract looking so nice, and the person has just used PowerPoint to design those graphical abstract. But most times, what I know people use, they use infographic makers, which are available online.
All right, thank you very much for that info. Suleiman, it seems you have a question, sir. Engineer Suleiman. Okay, I think he's not online, please. Any other question?
Yes,
For
Engineer Ogunowo Kozim has
okay,
a
Engineer
question,
Ogunwa
but
Kozim.
unfortunately, I think his mic is having some issues. Probably he's going to use mine to ask his question now.
Okay, no problem, no problems.
Okay, no problem. You can go ahead, sir.
1 minute, please.
I'm coming up.
Okay, sir.
Please
Please don't take your time. Hurry up.
Okay. Hello, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Solomon, thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
In fact, I really enjoy your presentation. Though I was so tired, but you actually make it an interesting thing for me to really ginger myself. My question is this: when you did distribution, no, was it?
Filter. Okay. Okay.
Distribution Peter.
Okay.
Now I want to know if I have this data.
Okay.
I have like 3 simulation experiment value,
Okay.
and I want to compare it with actual experimental values, but they have different. I have like let's say 9 columns for each.
Okay.
That means 9 columns in 4 places. I want to
Okay.
compare with the experiment.
Okay.
Now I've actually done 1-to-1 for one of the columns, as in
Okay.
similar
Like
columns.
each column with the other similar column. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
can I do the comparison at the same time, as in instead of doing 1-to-1, like take
Okay.
this, do
Instead of
this?
doing one-to-one, like compare all the values together.
Yes, just compare, run it, pam. It should give me their, maybe probably give me their house square values, pam, 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 and or is there a way I can do that?
I see. Anyway, I have not tried that on the distribution filter before, but
Okay.
most times when I've tried something like that, has to do with the numbers, the quantitative value, and
Okay.
you can use things like Wilcoxon test or ransom test.
Okay.
Together, you can use that, and it is going to give you values which you can compare with each other. Like directly together, it will give you a single value with which you can compare every of the results from this one to every of the results from the other one, not directly column by column or anything.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I might check the distribution filter once again to check, because I've used it, but most times when I use it for column, because most times what people want to see is how each column differs from the other, not just the high level difference.
Okay.
But so I'm going to still check it back, but I've not used it for that before. I've only used it for the column comparison.
All right. The suggestion you make again, can you help me send the...
Yeah, sure.
So that I can try it.
Yes, sure.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure, sir.
All right.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for having some time to answer some of our questions. And I would like to take one more last question, if there's any. Okay. So, in the absence of any question, Engineer Solomon, we really appreciate your time, and at the same time, the knowledge you've actually shared with us. And to all our participants that have been following from beginning to the end, we hope you've learned one thing or the other. And one way or the other, we still hope that you will learn, you'll be able to utilize any of this knowledge. And when you have challenges, I'm sure you can also reach out to these instructors directly, which they'll be willing to help. And subsequently, we hope that we'll have real data from our experience, from our experiments, to actually do this analysis for us to see how much impact this practical section can actually do for us. That being said, on behalf of myself, Engineer Suleiman Habib and Engineer Abdul Yakin Adebisi, which the three of us constituting the committee, we say thank you very much to all of you, and see you around. Have a lovely nice rest.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you can give us feedbacks and recommendation if you have any.
I think the feedback and the recommendation will go to the next.
No, I know for now at least our head should swell.
Okay.
We should feel.
And the feedback should come to us, but the recommendation
They
will
should
be for
give us
another.
some so that we'll recommend it to the
Maybe
next
okay.
committee.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, everyone.
All right.
Yes, sir. I hope you recorded.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee at large.
All right. Thank you, sir.